Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. A record increase in global number of COVID-19 cases has been reported over the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says almost 260,000 people tested positive overnight, increasing the toll to over 14.2 million, with more than 601,000 deaths. Brazil has reported over 28,000 infections and 971 fatalities overnight, increasing the death toll to nearly 79,000. In Pakistan, 46 people lost their lives in the last 24 hours, raising the total to 5,568 with nearly 263,000 cases. Syria is holding parliamentary elections today after 2 delays because of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the third parliamentary polls in the war-torn country since the pro-democracy uprising against President Bashar al-Assad in 2011. Official data shows some 2,100 candidates are contesting for the 250-seat parliament in all 15 Syrian governorates. European leaders have extended their summit by an extra day amid a lockdown on over $2 trillion budget and a massive COVID-19 recovery fund. A spokesperson for European Council, President Charles, says the summit will reconvene today. The recovery deal is being blocked by Northern European countries who favour aid to be given in the form of payable loans rather than free grants. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has discussed key issues of further bolstering a war deterrent with the country's military. State media says Kim chaired a Central Military Commission meeting and approved major munitions production plan in ICESS. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back now for the news in detail. A record high number of the COVID-19 cases has been recorded across the world in the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says some 260,000 people tested positive in a single day. The number of global cases has now crossed 14.2 billion, with more than 600,000 people infected overnight, with the death toll approaching 78,000. The COVID-19 pandemic is raging across the world once again, breaking grim records every day and overwhelming healthcare systems. US deaths from the novel coronavirus has exceeded 140,000 as cases continue to rise in 43 out of 50 states. The pandemic is also not letting up in Southern America, where Mexico and Brazil are the worst hit. South Africa now ranks 5th in the world for coronavirus cases as an aggressive outbreak hits the African continent. The country reported more than 13,000 new cases, with the tally above 350,000. In Australia, the opening of Parliament has been delayed by several weeks due to a second wave in 2 more populous states. The new outbreak in Spain have forced regional officials to announce a ban on gatherings of over 10 people. In Asia, China has reported 16 new COVID-19 cases on the mainland, of which 13 were domestically transmitted. While South Korea's new daily virus cases have hovered below 40 for the second straight day. The country identified 34 new cases, raising the total caseload to 13,745. While Pakistan has reported 46 deaths from the COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, raising the toll to 5,568. The Health Ministry says 1,579 cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 263,000. The ministry said over 204,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It said there are now over 59,000 active cases in the country, among which 1,763 are critically ill. Sindh is the worst hit province with over 112,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 89,000 cases. Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control are observing the accession to Pakistan Day with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom. On 19th July in 1947, representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. It was passed during a meeting of the All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference at the residence of Sardar Muhammad Ibrahim Khan in Srinagar. The historic resolution called for the accession of the state of Jammu and Kashmir to Pakistan. The decision was a testimony to the fact that the people of Kashmir had linked their future with Pakistan. The Indian government has decided to start the construction of a Hindu temple at a disputed religious site in Ayodhya from early August. Officials say Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the temple at the site of 16th century Babri Mosque. Last year, India's apex court allowed Hindus to build a temple on the site, which was demolished by Hindu mobs in 1992. This had sparked countrywide riots in which thousands of people lost their lives. Moving on, Syria is holding parliamentary elections today after 2 delays because of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the third parliamentary polls in the war-torn country since the pro-democracy uprising against President Bashar al-Assad in 2011. The votes will be held in government-held areas as well as some areas in the provinces of Al-Asaka, Idlib and Al-Raqqa, where Damascus has partial control. Official data shows some 2,100 candidates are contesting for the 250-seat parliament in all 15 Syrian governorates. In the 2016 vote, an alliance led by the ruling Arab Socialist Baath Party bagged 200 out of 250 seats in the unicameral legislature. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has discussed key issues of further bolstering a war deterrent with the country's military. State media says Kim chaired a Central Military Commission meeting and approved a major munitions reduction plan indicted. It said meeting stressed the need to thoroughly arm the young commanding officers. This was followed by a closed meeting to examine military situation in the Korean peninsula and the potential threat. State media has called the measures taken as historic decision. Pyongyang has threatened to give up its willingness to denuclearize after 3 failed summits between Kim and US President Donald Trump. EU leaders have extended their summit by an extra day amid a lockdown on over $2 trillion budget and a massive COVID-19 recovery fund. A spokesperson for European Council, President CHILE, says the summit will reconvene today. The recovery deal is being blocked by northern European countries who favour aid to be given in the form of payable loans rather than free grants. Hopes for an agreement grew on Saturday when Michel proposed revisions to the overall package. Under his new plan, the share of free grants in the proposed €750 billion recovery fund was cut to €450 billion from €500 billion. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said he still sees a big difference between EU member states. Now, Egypt has expressed concerns over Turkey's political and military interferences in Arab affairs. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmed Hafiz slammed Ankaras interventions in Iraq, Syria and Libya. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry said Turkey's military intervention in Libya lacks legitimate basis and violates UNSC resolutions. Earlier, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said he will take appropriate steps if Egypt and Libya are threatened. On Friday, Erdogan denounced Egypt and UAE for supporting forces of warlord Khalifa Haftar, describing the steps by Cairo as illegal. Now, in France, hundreds of protesters marched near Paris to denounce police violence and to honor Adama Traoré. Traoré was a black Frenchman who died during a police operation in 2016. Donning face masks, demonstrators marched in the city of Beaumont-sur-Oise, holding colourful banners. The march came on the eve of the 4th anniversary of Traoré's death in the city. He was celebrating his 24th birthday on July 19, 2016, when 3 police officers used their weight to restrain him. The outrage generated by African-American George Floyd's death in the US in May, whilst in police custody, has resonated in France. Now, Russia's ambassador to the United Kingdom, N.KOREA, has rejected London's allegations that Moscow's intelligence services tried to steal COVID-19 vaccine research. Talking to media, he also rejected suggestions that Russia had interfered in UK politics. This comes days before a report into allegations of Russian interference in UK's democracy is due to be published by Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee. The UK, US and Canada security services had alleged Russia of targeting vaccine developers. Earlier this week, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said Russians almost certainly sought to interfere in the 2019 UK election through illicitly acquiring documents. In Turkey, the death toll from a migrant boat disaster in Lake Van has risen to 54 after 3 weeks of search operation. In a statement, Interior Minister Suleyman Soylu said the boat was carrying at least 60 migrants. He said 9 bodies were recovered from the lake on Saturday. Migrants regularly cross into Turkey to reach Europe as Lake Van is located near the border with Iran. 7 people died and 64 were rescued when a boat carrying migrants from South Asia sank in December. A Syrian artist finds solace in making mosaics of prison memories to not forget Bashar al-Assad's regime tortures in Aleppo's Aziz district. More about this in this report.
Mosaic artist Abdul Razak Tawel remained in prison for 6 years in Damascus. He has started reflecting the torture memories with mosaic stones. Tawel has everything in his mind, like the moments of interrogation, friends, and torture.
I saved everything in my mind, like moments of interrogation, friends, and torture. Now I paint everything I remember. I also picture prisoners who died under torture.
Only a small number of victims dare to share their experiences after being released. Tawel got his freedom from prison in June 2019. He says he paints everything he remembers, even the pictures of those prisoners who died due to torture.
I made a portrait of the cruel that tortured me so much that I couldn't have a child and caused my 2 friends dead. I can't take out of my mind the picture of him wearing glasses on his face and having a cigar in his mouth, as well as I can't forget his torture.
According to rights organizations, hundreds of thousands are currently held in the prisons and interrogation centers of Assad regime.
Now, in Chile, the lockdown to limit the spread of the coronavirus pandemic has caused surge in unemployment and inflation. The economic pause has reduced many people to poverty. Meanwhile, the protests over social injustices and inequality have also raised the situation. More about this in this report.
The coronavirus outbreak has deepened a growing economic crisis in Chile. At the foot of the Andes Mountains lies Camp Dignity. It is a land government has provided to those people who are living just above the line of poverty. People are forced to reside in these camps because they cannot afford to pay rent elsewhere. The residents of these camps are infuriated as they do not have facilities in these camps.
I call on the authorities because there are a lot of people here and the authorities are nowhere to be seen. So in that sense, we need support and to be heard. There are a lot of needs here that are not being met. There are lots of babies here. We need formula, diapers, ingredients for casseroles because at the moment we are going hungry and we have needs.
The capital city, Santiago, is the inhabitant of some 6 million people. They largely depend on the informal economy. The unemployment rate hit 11.2% between March and May. The skyrocketing unemployment has worsened the conditions of the locals.
The economic and employment recovery will be slow. Chile is based on a service economy. These services have been largely suspended and therefore there is a substantial loss of the total number of jobs in the economy and therefore the source of income for a large number of people, which we cannot yet quantify but which we estimate will be of a great magnitude.
According to the national statistics of Chile, people working in the commerce, accommodation, food services, and construction sectors are the worst affected. The pandemic has claimed more than 6,000 lives in the country, with more than 288,000 infection cases so far.
More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. The International Monetary Fund says it's exploring additional tools to finance the poorest countries and others hit hard by the pandemic. It called on the Group of 20 economies to extend debt suspension initiative to help poorer countries cope with the economic fallout. Addressing the meeting of G20 finance ministers, IMF Managing Director Kristalina said the global economy faces a deep recession. While World Bank President David Malpass said the situation in developing countries is increasingly desperate, he urged G20 countries to extend a freeze in official debt payments by the poorest countries through the end of 2021. Following the meeting, G20 finance officials vowed to continue using all available policy tools to bolster the global economy. Earlier, G20 agreed on an action plan to provide over $14 billion in relief to the poorest nations. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can log on to our website and follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.